In the ancient city of Ilara, where myths whispered through the streets like ghosts of the past, there stood a library unlike any other, the Library of Secrets. Hidden within its towering shelves were manuscripts older than time, scrolls inscribed with forgotten incantations, and books that held knowledge too dangerous to be read. Among them lay a tome that none dared to touch, a massive, dust-covered volume bound in black leather, its title barely visible beneath centuries of neglect, The Eternal Darkness. The legend spoke in hushed tones. This book was cursed. Those who dared to open its pages would be swallowed by an abyss from which no soul had ever returned. Shadows moved within its ink, and whispers bled through its parchment. The wise elders of Ilara forbade anyone from even approaching it. But curiosity is a hunger not easily starved. Lian, a young scholar obsessed with lost knowledge, could not ignore the book's call. One moonlit night, when the city lay silent under a blanket of mist, she slipped past the library's iron gates and ventured inside. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and something else, something metallic, like rust or blood. The book was waiting. Its presence was undeniable, as though it had been expecting her. With trembling fingers, Lian brushed away the dust and pried it open. The ink on the pages was a deep crimson, gleaming unnaturally under the flickering candlelight. As her eyes traced the first line, the temperature in the library plummeted. The walls groaned, the shelves shuddered. A whisper slithered through the air, words she could not understand, yet they burrowed into her mind. The candlelight trembled, then died, leaving only darkness. Lian's breath came in short gasps. She tried to close the book, but it would not budge. Her hands, were they her own? They felt numb, distant, as though something else had taken control. The whispers grew into a chorus, a cacophony of voices from beyond the veil of existence. Then the shadows moved. Eyes, hundreds of them, pierced the void, glowing like embers in the pitch black. The floor beneath her was no longer solid. It twisted, crumbled, swallowed. A hand, if it could be called that, emerged from the darkness, its fingers elongated, clawed, reaching for her. Lian screamed, but the sound was devoured by the void. She struggled, but there was nothing to grasp onto. The book, still open in her hands, pulsed with a heartbeat not her own. Then, silence. The next morning, the Library of Secrets stood empty. Lian was never seen again. But those who pass by at night swear they can hear something, a faint, echoing whisper drifting from the shadows of the abandoned halls. Stay away from the eternal darkness, or you will share my fate. Decades passed, and the Library of Secrets remained abandoned. Dust and ivy crept over its stone walls, sealing away its cursed past. Only the boldest dared to speak of the scholar Lian, whose whispers were said to echo through its empty halls. Most dismissed the story as myth, except for one man. Daren Vale was not one to believe in ghost stories. A historian and investigator of ancient legends, he had spent years debunking myths and exposing superstitions. The tale of the eternal darkness intrigued him, not because he feared it, but because he was convinced it was nothing more than exaggerated folklore. So on a cold autumn evening, armed with nothing but a lantern, a notebook, and his unwavering skepticism, Daren pushed open the heavy iron doors of the abandoned library. Inside, time had stood still. Bookshelves leaned under the weight of forgotten knowledge, their pages brittle with age. Dust swirled in the dim glow of his lantern, and the silence was so thick it pressed against his ears. He began his search, methodically scanning the shelves, looking for the book. An hour passed, then two, nothing. Frustration gnawed at him. Had it been stolen, destroyed, or had it never existed? He exhaled sharply, shaking his head at himself. Legends, nothing but stories. Then something shifted. A soft thud echoed from behind him. He spun around, raising his lantern. A book had fallen from a high shelf. No, been pushed. His heart pounded, though he told himself it was just coincidence. Yet as he approached the fallen book, something caught his eye. There, half hidden behind a crumbling wooden shelf, sat a massive black tome. Daren's breath hitched. The eternal darkness. A strange sensation crawled over his skin. He hesitated, but only for a moment. This was what he came for. Steeling himself, he knelt and ran his fingers over the ancient cover. It was ice cold, a trick of the mind, he told himself, nothing more. With a deep breath, he flipped it open. The ink was red, unnervingly so. As he traced the words, his lantern flickered. The air grew thick, heavy, as if the room itself was breathing. Then the whispers began, soft at first, almost curious, but then, as if recognizing him, hungry. Daren's vision blurred. His pulse thundered in his ears. The pages beneath his fingers moved, shifting, writhing like something alive. A shadow stretched from the book, curling up his wrist, cold as death. He tried to pull away. The book would not let him go. The darkness deepened, swallowing the edges of the room. The whispering voices became a chorus, a maddening, unintelligible chant. And then, one voice rose above them all. "You should not have come." Daren's lantern shattered. The last thing he saw was the book's pages turning on their own, revealing something his mind could not comprehend. And then, nothing. The next morning, the library doors stood ajar. Daren was gone. The only trace of him was his notebook, lying open on the cold stone floor. One sentence had been scrawled onto its final page, written in dark red ink. "The darkness is waiting.